Uhuru.
Yoo-hoo! Here we are again. We're back. It's Monday. You know what time it is.
You already know. 3 p.m.
Come on
Eastern sharp. We are live.
Come on in. Come on in.
Let us know where you're tuning in from, as y'all already know the drill. Say Uhuru. I'm Comrade this and that. Tuning in from here and there. Let us know where you're at.
This is our final show of 2025.
I know.
Wow.
We've been going strong since what? Since like May. Love that for us.
I know. Here we are. Come on in. Join us. Tell everyone that we're on. Share us, like all that good stuff, because we have a show for you today, as always.
No, that's right.
Come on in.
Tell your friends, tell your mama, tell your daddy, tell your best friend, tell your sister, tell your uncle and your aunties that we're live.
Tell them that we are on. We are on.
No, that's right. How's the cold weather been treating you, comrade?
It's warm here. It's warm in the
is
south.
it?
So yeah, we had a warm Christmas, and let's see what happens for New Year's. But yeah, it's warm here.
I
So
envy that. I miss the warmth. I always have smoke for summer when it's here, but then when it's gone, I'm like, damn. I shouldn't have talked all that mess. But here we are.
I see you coming in. I see the chat filling up. That's what we want to see. All of our good folks here with us today. One Africa Worldview podcast. This is the last show of 2025, and we do have a show for you today. So I'm ready to get started when you are, comrade.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Uhuru. I am Soliana, your managing editor for the Burning Spear newspaper, the longest running Black Power newspaper.
I'm Dr. Mariah, promotions coordinator for Black Power, 96.3 FM radio based in St. Petersburg, Florida, but available worldwide to you through the Black Power 96 mobile app. And our show airs on Black Power 96 radio every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern.
That's right. And you are now tuned into the One Africa Worldview podcast that brings you African internationalist analysis on the day's top headlines, dynamic discussions and presentations from anti-colonial organizers and experts across the globe, and a to what end to our struggle against colonialism with real-time ways on how to engage and get involved. And today's show will be doing our first ever year in review, where we will take a look and discuss the major news events of the year. We'll also talk a little bit about what we're expecting for 2026. So definitely stay tuned. But before we get into all that, we begin our episode with a quick flashback to a moment in history, a very powerful moment in history. On this day, 59 years ago, the first act of Black Power, right, the precursor to the Black Panther Party storming the Capitol, actually happened in St. Petersburg, Florida, and it was carried out by none other than Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
Yeah, let's look at that. It's December 29th, 1966. Chairman Omali Yeshitela, then as a leading organizer with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, is leading a protest at St. Pete City Hall, demanding better conditions for the African community. The city is promising millions of dollars for the beautification of white St. Pete, while the African community continues to suffer from colonial exploitation and neglect. African people in this popular tourist town are the chief laborers, having cleared the swamps, paved the railroads and streets, and filled the domestic service industries working in nursing homes, hotels, and restaurants. Despite this, Africans live in the worst, most humiliating conditions of poverty, and in certain areas, our communities were situated where threats to our mortality were a real issue, such as the gas plant district.
Right. And in St. Pete at this time, City Hall is where one must go to pay their utility bills, right? Africans come in and out all the time to meet this obligation, and each time they've been confronted by the insulting depiction of our people by a white painter named George Snow Hill. Now, Hill's depiction of our people lived on a 8 by 10-foot mural titled Picnicking at Pasa Grill. It clearly shows African people with enlarged facial features of minstrel fashion, performing for white beachgoers and eating watermelon and fried chicken. Just all the stereotypes that you can imagine packed into this
Everywhere.
mural that we have up
One,
here on the screen.
one picture, all the stereotypes, as you
Mhm.
say here. Chairman Omali had written to the city numerous times to have the mural removed to no avail, over and over. Then on December 29th, 1966, a pivotal moment of the protest where an African woman who had joined the demonstration in her robe was mocked by white city officers, causing Chairman Omali to storm the building and snatch the mural from the wall. From that point, Chairman Omali marched defiantly down the streets of downtown St. Pete, dragging the mural right along with him. Trembling cops attempted at an arrest, terrified of witnessing in real time a kind of African they never had experienced before.
That's absolutely right. A kind of African they've never experienced before, right? The era of this docile Negro was really put to rest that day. The NAACP actually condemned him. The system sentenced him to 5 years in prison for this really bold act of anti-colonial free speech. And George Snow Hill would actually go on to say, quote, "I don't know how the Negroes could be offended by it. I just painted what I saw when my wife and I went down to Paso Grill," unquote. But Chairman Omali Yeshitela's courageous stance was a catalyst to the Black Power actions we would see subsequently in the following year. And what's even greater, serving as a constant reminder of African resistance, the wall where the mural once hung remains blank to this day. And despite the local government's attempt to rewrite the history that led it becoming that way, they have been unable to cover up the crimes and the reality of colonialism. And that blank wall really, stands to testament to that. So we want to definitely salute the chairman Omali Yeshitela and his leadership. He's never surrendered, and he leads the African Revolution today. And this powerful historical act is just one iteration of that.
Wow, yeah, and just that spectacular look at the past here. And now it's time to transition to the present, y'all. And we're taking you to our top headline picks for 2025. But let us know what headlines you think can be added to this list in the comments here, and we'll make sure that we take a look at those also. So, Comrade Ciliana, take us through January.
Yes, I would be glad to. And just like Comrade Mariah said, definitely help us, travel down memory lane, drop in the comments anything we might miss. But I'll be glad to take us through January, right? So in January of this year, the African People's Socialist Party actually began the year fresh off the victory of the trial of the century. No one's going to prison, no one's going to be fined, was what the U.S. District Court Judge William Jung had said on Monday, December 16, 2024, in the sentencing of the Uhuru Three. Applause, cheers, and tears rose up in the courtroom and hallway that overflowed with supporters from across the political spectrum and around the United States. The Uhuru Three are, of course, the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, African People's Solidarity Committee Chairwoman Penny Hess, and Uhuru Solidarity Movement Chair Jesse Neville. In September of 2024, they were found not guilty of acting as unregistered Russian agents. And in an unfounded and contradictory verdict, they were found guilty of conspiring to act as Russian agents. And Chairman O'Malley stated, quote, "The only reason we didn't get prison time is because we fought back against this government attack. We fought. Our lawyers were outstanding. The jury affirmed that we work for Black people, not Russia," unquote. And so this was a really, precedent-setting case, right? The first time a foreign agent law has ever been used to target political speech. And the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition has actually since launched a campaign to repeal this foreign agent laws, and the struggle definitely, continues in that realm. And we definitely want to salute the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign. So definitely stay tuned with that. But also in January 2025, we had another victory at hand when Comrade Leonard Peltier, an indigenous freedom fighter, was granted executive clemency, and the rest of his sentence was commuted, and he was able to finally go home after almost a lifetime of being locked up, right? And this was, of course, the result of decades of grassroots organizing in Indian country and the unveiling of increasing amounts of evidence of prosecutorial misconduct and constitutional violations during the prosecution of Peltier's case. We see this in all of the cases where African and colonized people are locked up through these trumped up charges, and they're serving insane sentences, right? These are political prisoners that we continue to fight the freedom for. And so we salute the work that the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee was involved in, and the continued work, like I said, to free all of our political prisoners, because it's definitely a never-ending struggle. So we definitely wanted to look back at that moment, and just, raise that up. And then also in January, a lot happened. Y'all see, a lot happened this year. But also in January, Donald Trump was inaugurated as the 47th president of the US, representing a huge defeat to the Democratic Party and the deepening crisis of the colonial mode of production. And as we continue on, summing up 2025, we'll see what his presidency has wrought upon us. But Comrade Mariah, can you tell us about February?
Absolutely, that Donald John Trump. But looking at February here, we kicked off February with yet another struggle and victory when on February 12th, the African People's Education and Defense Fund appeared before the St. Louis Board of Adjustment for a hearing to appeal the denial of a conditional use permit needed to begin construction of the Uhuru Bakery and Cafe. And this bakery and cafe was located at 3719 West Florissant Avenue. And in a 4-hour quasi-judicial hearing, including extensive sworn community testimony and debate there, the board voted unanimously to overturn the denial and finally granted the permit. And the hearing, held via Zoom, was attended by 116 people. Roughly 100 were there in support of the new eatery. And we are looking forward to the grand opening of this much needed institution in St. Louis, in that food desert there. And of course, stay tuned to our show to hear updates about this project as well as everything undercomes there. So yeah, and also in February, Black Power 96 hosted the online event, Weather the Storms Together with Black Power 96 Radio. And this webinar really educated the public on the critical role of how the local community radio really is crucial during hurricanes, storms, and other emergencies, especially for the Black and working class communities, just to get the word out about aid, about safety during those storms. Black Power 96 was there during the storms there in Florida and proved there as far as that. So that online event raised funds there and just really celebrated there as far as that community radio, and left behind what mainstream emergency communication systems don't do. Yeah.
That's right. And BP96 got busy this year, okay? Because in March, right on March 23, BP96 organized Media Shakeup, Defend and Grow Independent Black Radio. And this was a powerful online forum addressing escalating attacks on anti-colonial and Black radical media in general. And this is, of course, one of the many impacts of Trump's presidency, but we've also seen these kinds of repression under the Biden presidency as well. So BP96 was facing the brunt of that, especially in the wake of the Hands Off Uhuru case. But this event, contextualized BP96's struggle within a broader pattern of political repression. And it underscored why independent Black radio is essential to actual real democratic discourse. What we're doing here, Comrade Mariah, and definitely salute BP96 because, One Africa Worldview was on the revolutionary airways of BP96. So that happened in March. Also in March, the U.S. government, intensified crackdown on deportations, deporting nearly 280 migrants to El Salvador in prison without hearings or trials. I think this was also around the same time that LA was almost on fire, right? This year was really defined by the mass deportations, the violent attacks on indigenous Mexicans, Africans, and others by masked armed thugs, really. And, Trump called for the building of more detainment centers, such as Florida's Alligator Alcatraz. And we had comrades in Unión del Barrio, which is like a sister organization to the African People's Socialist Party, who organized community self-defense and ICE watches in California in light of the increasing attacks. And I remember actually looking at O'Neill Del Barrio's Instagram and just their social media presence at this time. And one of the things they were doing was like almost hourly updates on, where ICE was, like where you need to avoid, and like just really being on the ground voice for the indigenous Mexican community there, and really protecting their own. So that was really powerful to watch. So definitely salute Unión del Barrio in that struggle. So that was March.
Yeah, and that's just March there. And like you said, just seeing that since that Donald John Trump came in, and just seeing that whole, just the mass deportations. And that's something that, it started, like we said earlier in the year, but that's something that, we're facing, and we're seeing across our country now. And, just seeing the comrades on the ground developing ways to combat that, that's just so powerful there. And just shows that the movement there, and the ability to fight back in the revolutionary, the charge there is it's just really powerful. But yeah, and we're just at March, y'all. So moving ahead into April there, we'll look at the 9th annual Black is Back electoral campaign school took place in April. And that was in April of 12th through the 13th of this year at the Aquaba Hall in St. Louis, Missouri. In the call to electoral campaign school, Chairman Omali noted that this year's school recognized the need to take the struggle for our liberation into the hollow terrain of our oppressors, terrain that our people fought bombings, murder, assassinations, and radicalized slander to penetrate for our own benefit. And he continued that the Black is Back electoral campaign school is our means of stating that we're not retreating from our right to intervene in this legal process in pursuit of the dignity of our self-determination. Our self-determination, y'all. The right to feed, clothe, house, and govern ourselves. So most of the struggles being waged or promoted against the colonial regime of Donald John Trump are struggles to repair and advance the ill-defined agenda of the historically cowardly and unreliable Democratic Party. And we are our own liberators, and our own electoral campaign school plays a powerful role in our liberation through this struggle, our own self-determination. And we must continue to use the training from this school as a means of implementing our own national Black political agenda for that self-determination, y'all. So powerful.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for reading that portion of Chairman's call. And I unite, like this whole idea of like just putting into every arena our struggle, right? Like putting into how did Chairman put it? Like into the hollow terrain of our oppressors, right? Like we're going to go into every area we need to be able to, put that national Black political agenda for self-determination into the hands of the people, and teach the people how to do these basic things like get involved in your, local council, what it means to run for electoral campaign, like all these different things that before going into the party to me have sounds so grand. Like running for office in any level of government to me sounds like an impossible thing. But we have the party running comrades, cadre, training them to be able to do this. So just I think it's an example of like the African working class must lead, and the parties being an example of what that could look like. And I think the electoral campaign school is just one practical way that the party is like disseminating that and saying like this is what we could do, right? So definitely appreciate that. That definitely took place in April. So leading us into May, right? On May 12th, yours truly, or we truly, I don't know how to pluralize that, but the One Africa Worldview podcast actually launched to bring you African internationalist analysis on news taking place across the African world, as you guys have been used to at this point. And we've been going strong ever since. So May 12th is definitely our birthday. And believe it or not, it's coming up soon because the way the year is just flying by this time around. But and then shortly thereafter, the podcast also officially joined the BP 96 radio lineup, expanding its reach from digital platforms to community radio. So folks, driving down the street, coming off of work, could really tune into One Africa Worldview. So we really out there where the community is. And the addition reinforced BP96 African community support, right? The anti-colonial mission really deepen for listeners locally and worldwide. So, being on BP96 was definitely a victory and an honor. But also in May, and this was another big story that I believe we actually did a special 2-hour episode about this sometime in season 1, and it's about the tornado that took place and ravaged St. Louis, right? So on the afternoon of May 16, 2025, a really devastating EF3 tornado tore through North St. Louis, leaving in its wake unimaginable destruction unexpected by all residents. Entire corridors of St. Louis were ravaged, roofs were torn off, walls were collapsed, massive trees were downed onto cars and homes, and power lines were toppled, and over 100,000 residents were left without power for over a week. And in the days following the storm, it was revealed that city officials failed to activate emergency sirens, a negligence that really vindicates the distrust that African community has had toward the government that has consistently and historically failed to meet the needs of African people, right? And immediately after this disaster, though the residents of immediately after this disaster, the residents of North St. Louis were the actual first responders, right? They had to rely on themselves. Neighbors came together within minutes of the storm's passing. They started, cleaning the debris, blocking off live wires, because you know how dangerous those are, sharing food, providing water and critical information. And the Black Power Blueprint, with its framework of initiatives that affirm and build Black working class self-determination, joined and amplified these people-led efforts, right? And so immediately after the tornado, the Black Power Blueprint teams were on the ground, walking door to door, assessing the damage and checking on elders and families. They established a free community charging station and began distributing essential supplies, including hot meals that were prepared by Uhuru Foods. So you really saw the party's institutions kick into high gear the second this happened, and just became an example of what it means to have these institutions in the African community. So that was definitely a powerful moment. And of course, Black Power Blueprint led, cleanup work days throughout the rest of the month. So this wasn't just immediately after the tornado, but I think up until the end of May, this was an ongoing thing. They mobilized scores of volunteers with, tools, gloves, buckets, and hand tools to help remove trees and debris from homes. And these collective acts of solidarity really underscored the power and dignity of an organized community taking care of its own, right? And this was, of course, in sharp contrast with really the confusion and chaos that was demonstrated by the government historically too. So this wasn't entirely surprising that when this kind of destruction happened, that the African community in St. Louis, the north side of St. Louis, was completely abandoned. They had to fend for themselves. Good thing is the party, has established a base there, and they were able to really put comrades on the ground and really, fight this situation in the way that it needed to be. But this was just another example of that neglect, right? And we definitely want to raise up the work of the Black Power Blueprint and what it means to have people-led institutions. But also in May, right, we had the Black Mothers March on Mother's Day, and Mother's Day this year fell on May 11. And on May 11, the Black Mothers March on the White House entered its 4th year, actually. And this powerful gathering really served as a platform to make the struggle to, rescue our children a really vital part of the larger fight for Black liberation. And the African National Women's Organization, in coalition with other organizations based in DC, but also throughout the US, united and worked together to condemn the colonialist policies that undermined the centrality of Black life, right? These policies target Black families, isolate individuals, and victimize entire communities. And with the deployment of the National Guard recently, this became even more clear. And through this march, African mothers, fathers, and children really came together to give a voice to those who have been silenced, and took a stand against the injustice of the family policing system, because we understand CPS, Child Protective Services, very heavy air quotes on the protective part of it, as this essentially terrorist organization that does nothing but tear African children from families, right? And so this march was an opportunity to really highlight that, reclaim our power, amplify our voices, and really resist a system that's been designed to oppress us. So definitely want to salute the work of Annual putting together that and all the other organizations. And then in May of this year as well, again, BP96 dominating the headlines in this episode, Comrade Mariah. BP96 participated in Music Biz 2025, and I know that was the work of Comrade Mariah right there, gaining valuable opportunities for education, networking, and exposure to evolving trends in the music industry, all resources that really directly benefit independent artists and community broadcasters. So BP96 played a crucial role in just going to different cultural events and doing that work. So definitely shout out BP96. So that took place in May. Another thing that took place in May, of course, like I said earlier, we would hear more about Trump. Trump he fast tracks cuts to federal government spending around this time, appointing tech colonizer Elon Musk over the temporary Department of Government Efficiency, or colloquially known as Doge, to have oversight over U.S. spending. And I don't know if y'all remember, but there was this whole like lover spat between Trump and Elon, and they had this whole break, and the whole Doge thing didn't even pan out the way that it was. It was a whole mess, which we're not surprised by. But that took place around this time, and this is as revealing as Mark Zuckerberg participating in the Munich Security Conference back in 2020. So you see all these tech zealots and tech colonizers and working more explicitly with the hand of the U.S. government under Trump. But that also took place in May. But Comrade Mariah, take us through June.
Yeah, and I just want to comment there, like you
Oh
mentioned,
yeah.
as far as that those lovers there, it was like the lovers, and then the girls got the fighting too. There, it was a lot going on there towards the end of that, and it was definitely a mess as always when you're dealing with Donald John Trump. But yeah, looking at June here, we see that in June, the African People's Socialist Party stood in solidarity with Ibrahim Traore on the alliance of the Sahel states in their rejection of France and unwillingness to bow to neocolonialism. In our official statement, the party actually declared that we salute the just and historic struggles of the governments of African people in the Sahel states, who have, in a short space of time, expelled the United States and French colonial armies from our sacred African soil. The anti-colonial governments of the Sahel states, led by Chihini, Goti, and Traore, are part of the general growing African resistance characterized by the rejection of foreign colonial powers led by the United States and supported by unpatriotic African petty bourgeoisie neo-colonial governments. So to stand in solidarity with the Captain Traore, Generals Tachani, and Goti is to be a part of the international effort to mobilize, activate, and organize all fronts of the African national liberation movement to achieve our final objective, the liberation and unification of Africa and African people. So, yeah, and then also in June, the United States and Israel threatened war with the so-called Middle East after dropping bombs on Iran as a part of the hostile takeover of the region, concentrated in the illegitimate occupation of Palestine. Iran, Yemen, and Palestine continue to engage in fierce resistance against the settler colonial entities. And also in June, we saw that federal troops were deployed against the ICE protesters in Los Angeles, California. And this was a move by Donald John Trump, exposed the illegitimacy of colonial law and revealed to be true the chairman's definition of law, quote, the opinion of the ruling class. Chairman says the definition of law is an opinion of the ruling class. So the United States at this point is abandoning the pretext of democracy and anything that we've seen of that before in their own law to carry out its objectives of crushing the colonized in order to rescue the futures of the colonizers at our expense.
Mm, right. And it's crazy because in June itself, you see this whole notion of the uneasy equilibrium, right? You see African people rising in Africa. You see um, you see the resistance of Palestinian people. You see Yemen, helping, fighting against Israel as well as Iran. Then you see in the U.S., right, the ICE deployment against protesters here. So you see this constant struggle just in 1 month. The idea of the whole, uneasy equilibrium is like shown in bold relief. But yeah, June, reflecting on it, June sounds like a lot happened, and it did. But in July, taking us back through BP96 again, dominating the headlines. BP96 remained deeply engaged in uplifting Black culture throughout the year. In both the months of February and again in July, the station supported and promoted gospel concerts in St. Petersburg, providing a platform for local gospel artists and strengthening spiritual and cultural ties within the community. This was also the month from July 4 until July 6, BP96 covered Essence Festival 2025, delivering interviews, fashion, music, and community perspectives from one of the world's largest celebrations of Black culture. And Comrade Mariah, I don't know if you want to reminisce a little bit about Essence Festival and what it was, because I know you were responsible for actually covering this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
I love it. Yeah, Essence Festival was something else, but then also Essence Festival, we brought the discussion back. Yeah, it was a festival of Black culture, as we said, but then that Black culture created another question there of what is Black culture and where does Black culture come from and what's African, who's African, and all of that. So yeah, it created a larger discussion there that we were actually able to bring back over here to One Africa Worldview and discuss that there. So yeah, guys can go back and check that episode out where we did a full recap of Essence Festival, but also delve into a deeper discussion of we're all Africans, y'all. So yeah.
That's right. We corrected the line is what we did. And I think that was like season 2 launch too. We came back strong and angered a lot of people with that episode. But it was a really good episode. And yes, we are all one African people. And we were glad. And yeah, I'm glad we were able to cover that and put the question up front, because the discussion that was coming out in the wake of this was a little bit concerning, as it always is when it comes to FBA talking points. But yeah, I want to take us through August, Comrade Mariah.
Yeah. So back again here at U.S. President Donald John Trump, he deployed National Guard troops into African communities of Washington, D.C., and subsequently moves to deploy in Portland, California, Chicago. Now we're seeing it everywhere, New Orleans, Memphis, Tennessee, you name it. He's trying to send those troops in there. And we saw that started happening back in August of this year. And that's still something that, we're seeing happening now. And we know what communities that, they're targeting there. We're targeting our communities. And we know the people that are being affected is our people. So, yeah. But also on August 7th, Black Power 96 again hosted the online event, Stop Defunding Public Media, Support Black Community Radio Fight Back. And this event was just something that really provided a critical update on the lawsuit that featuring the political analysis from the Chairman Omali Yeshitela himself and the legal insight from attorney Luke Leroux. And the discussion really made clear that this case is not just simply about funding. It is about defending the freedom of association, about opposing racial discrimination. It's about protecting the right of Black institutions to exist independently.
Yeah, that's right. And BP96 continues to dominate the headlines because in September, BP96 reporters provided coverage of Black Americana Fest 2025. And we say reporters, but one of them is sitting right next to me, right here, along with Comrade Talmadge, followed by on-the-ground reporting from NOLA Funk Fest from October 17 and 19. And these efforts really ensured that listeners who could not attend still experienced the richness, creativity, and political spirit of these events. And of course, there are articles about these events in the spirit as well. So definitely check those out. BP96 should be your go-to for the coverage of African cultural events. So yeah, definitely salute y'all. But also in September, in more somber news, Comrade Assata Shakur passed away at the age of 78. And in raising up the dedicated and lifelong struggle of Comrade Assata, Chairman Omali wrote, quote, "Police bullets cannot stop her. Prison walls cannot hold her. U.S. courts cannot convict her. She was heroic in our fight against this unjust, oppressive relationship that's been imposed on Africans and colonized peoples of the world, and fought with all her capacity. She used every form of struggle to fight for African freedom. Assata embodied the fierce determination of African people to be free of colonial domination, to be self-determining regardless of the personal price, unquote. So we definitely say long live Assata Shakur. She'll always live long in our hearts. And fun fact, I used to always say, when I have a daughter, I'm gonna name her Assata. That was one of my things. So I definitely hold Assata Shakur close to my heart. Her autobiography, like many of her writings, was one of the most important things for me in my own development politically. So definitely want to say long live Comrade Assata Shakur. But also in September, the darling of white nationalism, right? Charlie Kirk was assassinated at a rally in Utah, and we didn't tire. I mean, the news couldn't tire of reporting this. I mean, at one point, it felt like this would not exit the news cycle, and it was actually getting insane. People were comparing him to Martin Luther King Jr. Like, it was madness on the news around Charlie Kirk, but we of course did an episode around that as well to try to correct the political chaos that existed, or the apolitical chaos that existed, because there was nothing political about that. Yeah, so that happened in May, and actually on the same day as Assata's passing, in September, Trump published a national security memorandum promising colonial surveillance and attacks on anyone with anti-capitalist, anti-American, and anti-Christian views. While it's nothing new, the documents, closely resemble those that were leaked from COINTELPRO in the 1960s. And, I believe this was in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder. So you see him sort of trying to retaliate and blame everyone left and right. But again, this has always been the modus operandi of the US government, but Trump is not strategic enough to at least lie about it, right? He's just putting it out there. So there's that. And then within September as well, the US has launched dozens of airstrikes on fishermen boats in the Caribbean Sea. And I believe they still are. And I actually saw a news alert recently that some boats are just now getting like recovered and seen just how bad the damage is. But this was, a provocation for war with Venezuela and Nicolas Maduro, one of the anti-colonial holdouts of South America. And that is one anti-colonial holdout that Trump is trying to get. And it's been abundantly clear based on how this war has been waged on the Caribbean coast. And this is continuing. So that has been September.
Yeah, September, just like all the other months, there's so much going on here. And just kind of going back, and I know you said that and mentioned how we did touch on the Charlie Kirk and the whole thing there, to where that whole thing has become this movement, and it's become this movement of with nothing behind it. We're seeing this Charlie Kirk fool has been quote unquote assassinated. We see this wife on some kind of tour parade, and we see just all of this fallout now, to where, like you said, they're just grasping. This is our Martin Luther King. Oh, this is our revolutionary. This was not anything when it comes to that. And I'm being very careful with my words here. But when it comes to this tour that we see this Erica Kirk on, which we also saw Maga Minaj sitting there speaking to her earlier this month, it's just something that I can't describe. There's not any words for the parade, but I also saw, and that's what that was my whole point, is it's how you mentioned just the discussion here that the words Charlie Kirk was actually the most Googled words this year. And that just blows my mind, because before this ridiculousness, there was no discussion of him, but now he is discussion across every platform in every different way. So yeah, it's just this false white nationalism on parade and veiled by this revolutionary Christian movement. So yeah, when it comes to all of that, I don't think that we'll just see the end of it in 2025. And I think that we'll discuss this again and continue to see this foolishness carry on, honestly, into 2026.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I appreciate you raising that, because I definitely forgot the song and dance that Erica Kirk is doing with Turning Point USA. And I feel like we need to do an entire episode of her and her interview with Nikki, because I saw clips of it, and that's the most like it's almost comedic how incoherent the conversation was, and you hear the crowd clapping at everything Nikki is saying, and I'm like, that's how little you have to say or to sound to get that kind of support from this crowd. Like
little bites, like little sound bites, little clips that she's saying that, oh, they're going crazy over this, but they don't know who Nicki Minaj is. They don't know a Nicki song. And so it's like, okay, at the end of the day, like we said, she's Maga Minaj. Y'all can have her. We don't want her anymore. So yeah, I do feel like this is definitely something that, this is not the end of this discussion. And we will definitely have to touch on that over here on One Africa Worldview for sure. So yeah.
that's right. I believe October is next up, comrade.
October 9th, we saw our relentless leaders, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onazane Yeshitela, celebrated their shared birthdays. In the October edition of The Burning Spear, actually, we wrote that, quote, "We want to salute our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has dedicated over 60 years of his life to the struggle for African freedom, independence, and the destruction of the colonial mode of production on his 84th birthday. Chairman Omali continues this fight as leader and founder of the African People's Socialist Party, the advanced detachment of the African Revolution, the worldwide Uhuru movement, and author of the theory of African internationalism. The world has forever been changed for the better because of the contributions to it, and we cannot forget the APSP's Deputy Chair, Onazane Yeshitela, born also October 9, 1960, an African working class woman hailing from St. Petersburg, Florida, who came into the Yahoo movement and began to immediately transform it with her brilliance, creativity, and her work ethic. She serves as a leader of the developing independent African socialist economy, negating the influence of the colonial mode of production through our party's dual power institutions. And they are just these two fierce fighters for African liberation, united by the theory of African internationalism. So as materialists, we don't often believe in coincidences, but in this case, we make a rare exception. We salute our bold revolutionary leadership and claim October 9th as Yeshitela Day. Wow.
Right.
So it's something out of a film. Over 100 million of crown jewels were liberated from the Louvre Museum in France. And in broad daylight, these people posed as workers and stole these jewels, y'all. And the jewels have yet to be recovered, actually. And may they be returned from the place they were actually stolen. Our Africa and reparations paid to Africa and Haiti by France is century-old theft of our own resources. So, and also, in October, the United States experienced their longest government shutdown in history, beginning on October 1st and lasting 45 days. Wow.
Wow, yeah, that did happen in October, huh? And I actually remember how crazy that was, because being in DC, like, or near DC, everyone and their mama is a government worker. So, like, folks were, yeah. And I believe when this second time happened, it was like, is he going to beat his record? Because I think the last shutdown also happened under Trump, and that was the first longest one. And so I think this one ended up beating that. But, the shenanigans continue. But I wanted to say something about.
Comrade dropped there, and I'm sure pop back in here. So yeah, like we said, that was the longest shutdown, topping the first longest shutdown that was both under who else? Donald John Trump. So yeah, Comrade was going to move into November here, but we'll go ahead and start taking a look at that until we get her back here. But yeah, at the top of November. Oh, there we go.
I'm so sorry. I hope I wasn't gone too long, comrade. I got you. I will definitely go through in November. But I was gonna say something about the museum and how, like, the resources that were stolen from Africa, right? I don't know if you've heard, but like in Egypt, they opened a brand new museum pretty close to the pyramids, and it's really high, high scale, and has all the facilities and the bells and whistles to like house the necessary items, like all the ancient things, in a way that can sustain them and preserve them. And what you hear from the Europeans to this day is about how Africans don't have the capability to house these items that are ancient. They may be theirs, but they're not able to take care of them, and so it needs to be in Europe. so that it can actually be preserved, because according to them, Africans don't have the ability to do so. But Egypt did all this, went all out to create this facility, and is like looking to Britain and saying, you have no excuse to say nothing about that, even if it was, came from obviously colonial psychology about that. But so now they're like really pushing the British Museum, that has you know resources and material culture from just everywhere in the world, not just Africa, but just from Asia as well. And really saying like, you have to return these now. We have the ability to house these, and they belong back home where you took them from. So that's definitely an ongoing struggle, and we should definitely continue to stay updated on that. But with that, I'll go through November. So at the top of November, the Black is Back Coalition held its 17th annual Black People's March on the White House. We had comrades come out from different areas in the U.S. to Washington, D.C. to partake in the annual march to the colonizer's house, right? This year, the theme was around resisting the National Guard deployment in D.C. and other cities in the U.S. at that point, as well as the daily threats that the White House was making against any that it deemed its enemy. And like we mentioned earlier, this was particularly articulated in the September 25 memo that the White House published, where it essentially declared war against, what it characterized as a culmination of sophisticated, organized campaigns of targeted intimidation, radicalization, threats, and violence designed to silence opposing speech, limit political activity. Like, it sounds like they're describing their work, but they're saying this is what like others are doing against the U.S. government, right? And but despite this, the people were, of course, not intimidated by this, and we showed up fearless to Pennsylvania Avenue, and of course read all about that in the Burning Spear as well. And also in September, in a really contentious mayoral race in New York City, Democratic Socialist candidate Zohran Mamdani won the election over Trump-endorsed Governor Andrew Cuomo. While the white left celebrated this as a victory for socialism, the African People's Socialist Party, continues to expose the opportunism of the white left, criticizing Mamdani's failure to meet with the African working class in New York, and his condemnation of the people's government of Venezuela and its leader, Nicolas Maduro. So, that's a continuing contradiction. And we even have our own history with the DSA, right? Maybe that's a topic for another time. But yeah, so that happened in September. And after months of delay, the heavily redacted Jeffrey Epstein files were signed to be released on November 19th, uncovering what we already know, right? The U.S. colonial ruling class kidnaps and rapes children and suffers no consequences. And I believe more have come out since, but people have called them the Epstein barcodes because of how insanely redacted it was. I mean, you could see even on the photo that we have up here, one of the pages is just completely blocked off. So even as they try to play at their own false idea of transparency, they can't even do it, right? So there's that. And then on November 23 as well, Jamil Al-Jamin, famously known as H.Rap Brown, also passed away at 82 years old. He was a political prisoner who served 23 years up until his passing because of his role in the Black Power movement of the 1960s. We have so many more comrades still locked up over, trumped up charges. And, unfortunately, this is one of them that had, passed on in prison. And by this time as well, the civil war in Sudan became the largest recorded and fastest displacement crisis in the world, with more than 12 million people forced to flee their homes. Yet the white right had and left really had remained pretty silent on this. We had done a couple, done a couple stories about the situation in Sudan, and we have understood that it's a colonial war that we're seeing in Sudan, and the neo-colonial forces, the form of the U.S. and Britain playing a role as well. But also in November, Black Power 96's legal struggle came to a pivotal moment when BP 96 staff and volunteers traveled to Jacksonville, Florida to attend oral arguments in the federal court appealing the dismissal of the COVID-19 grant revocation lawsuit. Their presence in court symbolized a broader fight back for democratic rights that affects not only BP 96, but all community-based and movement online media. So definitely want to salute BP 96 in that work.
Yeah, that whole fight back there, and that revocation of that grant has been something there that, that it has been a challenge, but it's something that we're going to overcome. And I'm just excited to see all that support, and just to see that, that we do have the chance to speak whenever it comes to our community. So yeah, that's super, super powerful there for Black Power 96. But then also I want to go back. You mentioned those damn Epstein files. I'm so tired of hearing about them. We waited for them to come out, waited. This is supposed to have this in it. It's supposed to have that in it. It came out, and like you said, it's nothing but a whole bunch of lines on a page. So right now we're still at a question mark. And even if it does come out, you can see all these people laying in a bed together. They can be laying in a pool together. Nothing gonna happen. So at the end of the day, what are we waiting on when it comes in? I'm so tired of those files. Hope we can leave them in 2025.
I
Yeah.
know that's right.
Moving on here to December, and this is our fun. We had so much going on this year, and I can't believe that we are here at the final month here. And just looking at December, the Burning Spear newspaper celebrated the 57th anniversary, y'all, of being in print. Burning Spear newspaper in print for 57 years now, speaking our voice, being revolutionary. And this is no small feat, born out of the need to inform and organize African people against issues pertinent to what? Our community. So the Spear, since its inception, has distinguished itself as the voice of the international African revolution, and continues to do so, y'all, ever bolder than before. So we definitely have to say happy 57th birthday to the Burning Spear. And so to salute the team that makes it happen every month, y'all, Comrade Ciliana there included, as well as our fearless editor-in-chief, Akile Anae. So we definitely have to say happy 57th birthday to the Burning Spear. And also in December, the Uhuru movement closed the year by honoring the collective effort that sustains our movement. And on December 7th, volunteers from across the movement, y'all, were recognized at the Uhuru Into You Volunteer Heart and Soul Recognition and Awards event organized by the Office of the Deputy Chair, celebrating the dedication, the labor, and love poured into keeping Black community dual and contending power institutions alive and functioning. Wow.
That's right. That's right. And don't be shy to mention that you were one of the winners of the Heart and Soul Recognition Awards. So definitely shout out to you and all of the volunteers that make the work of the room movement possible. And I see we have a comrade for Comrade Kumbo says we built huge pyramids, but we cannot build a building to protect our stuff. Right. Like that's what I'm saying. The cognitive dissonance that must require you to reach that logical or illogical conclusion. You got to do mental gymnastics to really be able to reason with colonizer logic, if you could even call it that sometimes. But that's absolutely right, Comrade Kumba. That's absolutely right. And now y'all know it ain't Trump. It's the whole damn system.
The whole damn system. We know Donald John can't do that alone. It's the whole damn system, as you said there, Comrade. Wow.
Right. Speaking of, it's the whole damn system. Our plenary is one of the things coming up next year that I'm really looking forward to. Definitely, I'm going to struggle to finally fly out to St. Louis. I've been in the movement for God knows how long, and I haven't been to St. Louis or St. Petersburg. I feel like I've committed some sort of sin by not making that happen. But yeah, and the theme is, this time till it's won. It's not just Trump, it's the whole damn system. I feel like that could be a whole rap song.
I love it.
Shout out Kumba for bringing that on. Uhuru and happy holidays. Yeah, Comrade, is there anything else you may be looking forward to in 2026, whether it be party related, whether it be Mariah related?
Well, both really. Speaking of, when it comes to, like we said, we see that there's a change here. There's a shift when it comes to the revolution. I want to just see that change when it comes to African people in our community. I want to see that keep pushing and keep coming together, keep building and doing for ourselves. As we said, that self-determination. That's what I want to see in 26 and beyond. But then for myself, I want to keep the peace. I want to just be peaceful in 2026. I don't want all that rigmarole. I just want peace. So that's all I'm asking for.
I know that's right. Now I'm scared to say what I was looking forward to because mine just sounds unprincipled. So, I was gonna be like, I might go back to Ethiopia for a little bit this summer. So we'll see. Who knows? But I also want to see, African self-determination and all the things you articulated, Comrade Dr. Mariah. So thank you so much for that. We also want to recognize the Comrade Unemployed Scholar, who's basically our, sole supporter. Thank you so much for the $3 with the baby lemon with pom poms in his hands cheerleading. Love the emojis and the description. They'll be like unemployed scholar. They may be unemployed, but they still putting their money where their mouth is. So, but yeah, so much could really happen in a year, as we've clearly seen from our review. But only so much can happen in an hour here on One Africa Worldview, and we're nearing that time. So as we wrap up our final show of 2025, we of course are going to let you know some of our upcoming events and ways that you can immediately get involved with the Uhuru movement. So Comrade Mariah, can you let our viewers and listeners know what's coming up in the calendar?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is your reminder to start planning because the event of the year is coming. The African People's Socialist Party's International Plenary takes place April 17th through 19th, 2026 in St. Louis, Missouri. And the theme is "This Time Till It's Won, Power in Our Own Hands." It's not just Trump, it's the whole damn system. And if you're ready to get organized, to build and fight back, y'all, this is where you have to be. At this event, April 17th through 19th in 2026, you have to be in St. Louis, Missouri. There's no excuse. Start searching for plane tickets now. Start searching for ways to carpool over there. Start searching, getting on the train. We want to see you in St. Louis, April 17th through 19th. So start planning your travel arrangements now, y'all. Registration is available at apsplenary.org. That's apsplenary.org. And for all of our events and everything else that we always have going on, you can visit theburningspirit.com/events. And of course, we'll be keeping you updated right here on One Africa Worldview. So make sure you subscribe on any of our socials so you're all locked in and following us there.
That's right. That's right. We expect to see y'all out there in St. Louis. I expect to see myself out in St. Louis. I expect to see you, Comrade, right out in St. Louis. But that is it for today's show, comrades. Thank you once again to all of our viewers and listeners for joining here with us every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Sharp. Make sure to, of course, grab your own January 2026 issue of the Burning Spear newspaper. And of course, do not forget to subscribe to our channel to never miss an episode of the One Africa Worldview podcast. Ring that bell on YouTube so you get a little notification every time we're live. We stream on the Burning Spirit TV YouTube. We're on the Burning Spirit Media Rumble channel. And we're also on Black Power 96.3 FM, based in St. Pete, Florida, but streaming globally on the Black Power 96 FM app. Y'all heard it here first, so tap in. So we'll see you in the new year. That's right. So be safe. Revolutionary greetings. And until next time, comrades, One Africa,
One Nation.